All right, good morning. All right, we are in Exodus chapter 14 and 15 today. This is lesson 5. I'm calling it 5A because we're going to handle chapter 16 the next time we come together. And to inform all of you, we have Easter next week, and so the scheduling of it has been such that we have omitted a meeting next week in order to allow people to recover a little bit from their Easter craziness. For some of us, we have a lot of people coming in, a lot of cooking and a lot of work, and some of those people will have family members lingering and staying still on and maybe won't even leave town yet for a day or two after the Easter event. So we just always cancel for Easter, and I think that's probably wise to do it that way. Just to eliminate the stress on the workload, because your homework is challenging, and is it not? All right, so today what I want to do is I want to start by taking you through a few inductive skills processes on what we are doing here. How many of you had found it challenging when you got into doing map work and trying to find location and what the route was? Yeah, we all did. And I just want you to know that up front, nobody knows exactly what the route is. One of the maps I got was, I think this is the one, Mia, that you brought in. One of these might be. Is one of these the ones that you got? Okay, great map. I think it's in this one. Then and Now, my Bible maps. It's Rose Publishing. And in here, they have a map with an overlay of the Sinai Peninsula and the exit. So I scanned it on my computer, and I'll send it off to Kristen when I send my chart so she can send it out. Because what it does is it provides for you I think there's like 5 different possibilities for routes, but different scholars all are disagreeing about and arguing over. But what do you do when you don't know for sure? And you're listening to, quote, scholars, and they're biblical men. They love the Lord. They're seeking for truth, right? But remember, each of them, especially if they're archaeological degrees, and if that's their profession, they are certainly possessive about their opinions, right? And you can understand that they kind of get, I do it too as a teacher. I think I know something, and this is where I'm going to stand on it. But here's what I think is going to help us today, is understanding how you handle literary form and what do you do when you get to a difficult passage. We've already covered this a couple of times recently. I think we did it once in Luke. No, it wasn't Luke. Mark. And then we did it again in Peter, I think. And so now here we are again talking about what do you do when you hit a difficult passage. In this case, it's not a difficult passage. We can read the passage just fine. But when you go to try to map it out and go into your commentary and your research, there's argument about where these places are. So what do you do when you don't know how to handle it? Well, first of all, you remember your 2 pillars. The 2 pillars are?
Never violate known doctrine and context rules.
That's right. Never violate your known doctrines. So what you know is absolutes about who God is, and the principles about who man is, who God is. You have to hold fast to those principles of doctrine. And then the other one is let your immediate context rule for interpretation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a few passages that I think will be helpful in setting kind of the facts on that for you. Where did I put my notes on that? Oh, here it is. Okay. All right, so they were on the other chart. I have too much stuff on my chart today, you guys. Okay, as usual. Okay, so number 1, what you want to do when you're looking at trying to map out what we're fixing to talk about here in chapter 14, which is this progression of their movement from Goshen into the parting of the Red Sea and into the place where they would end up being, right? Where Mount Sinai would be. So one of the first things you need to do is look at your immediate context. Okay, let's see, no, do not violate known doctrine. That's number 1. Number 2, let the text, your immediate text, and actually all the text, not just your first your immediate text, but then your cross-referencing on that subject. Let text rule for interpretation. Okay, got it? So those are your two rules. Now what we want to do is we say about these skills. So the first thing we want to say is, what is it that we know from our immediate text, starting back at the beginning of Exodus? Let's go first to chapter 3, because I think we can pick up a bunch of real major points that are going to be very helpful for what I would say settling the mind on certain known doctrines, the things that are known from the immediate text for sure. Okay, so let's go into Exodus 3. We're going to look at verse 1, and then we're going to look at 10 to 12, because I think there's some major points in there for us. The first one, somebody read Exodus 3:1.
Now Moses was pasturing the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God.
Okay, so the first thing we know is, and prior to that, we're not going to go back and read it, but why is Moses in Midian?
He ran away from Egypt.
He ran from Egypt because he murdered somebody. And if he goes back into Egypt, what's going to happen to him? He's going to get arrested, right? So what we do know is that Sinai is Egyptian territory. So when he left, he didn't stop at the Sinai Peninsula. He went into Midian. Sinai is under garrison or troop protection by Israel's army, right? He has his soldiers posted certainly up there along that Sinai Peninsula where the land of the Philistines is above and the Canaanites are above, and they actually, the Sinai, although it was considered a wilderness, and it still is, it wasn't fully populated, but it was under control of Egypt. So the first thing we want to know is this: Moses is in exile for murder, right? He killed an Egyptian, we know that. And he's living in Midian. Now, where is Midian? What would we call it today? Saudi Arabia. Yes, you can say it. Saudi Arabia. Okay? So that's the first thing you know. That's where he is, and that's where he is when he goes. Now, he goes to shepherd the flocks. And he takes them where? To a wilderness area, right? Do you think there's a wilderness area of Arabia, on Midian? Okay. I mean, sometimes people want to make an assumption that the Sinai is the only wilderness over there and they all had to go back there. And that's not true. Arabia has plenty of wilderness, trust me. Okay. He goes to the west side of the wilderness. He came to Horeb. And this is called the mountain of God. Now, this is just a thought. I don't believe that he would have gone into Egyptian territory anyway without the text telling us that. Because as you've seen when we're reading this narrative so far, it's all about location, 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 right? You get notification of where he is at every turn. And he does not say he went into Egypt's wilderness to shepherd the flocks of Midian. Can you imagine in your thinking why he might not do that? There's at least a couple of reasons I can think of. Why would you, if you were running from Pharaoh, go back to Egypt to shepherd flock? Would you put yourself potentially in danger of being arrested had an Egyptian soldier came upon you? Yes. Okay. What about shepherding in that day if they were to go into someone else's territory anyway? What if a Midianite comes into Egyptian territory with his flocks and then thinks that he can just do that We call that crossing the border illegally these days. Would you consider that to be the same mindset back then? So there's like the two major things. Number one, his life would have been in danger. Number two, the flocks themselves even would have been in danger, in my thinking, because potentially if he was caught by any Egyptians, they would just seize his flocks, beat him up, and send him packing or kill him, right? And if it was a soldier who recognized him, they might even arrest him and take him back to the courts of Pharaoh, correct? Okay, so that's just going through my mind, and I'm just laying that on the table. Is it reasonable thinking at this point? Okay, so because of that, because he's in Midian, he's living in Midian, he's in exile for murder, right? He comes to this place called Horeb. It's called the Mountain of God, but there's no mention of him actually moving into Egypt to do this. Just that he went to the wilderness. That's all it tells us. All right. So he was grazing flocks in Midian. So it seems like that's where he saw God, right? The burning bush would have been, I think, in Midian. The mountain of God. That's my thinking. Okay, this is the reasoning I'm using. So what I'm trying to do is put into principle, look at what's obviously said, what do we know so far, use your immediate context to rule for your interpretations that you're going to try to draw from. Because at this point what we do know is the academic world, they all have differing views, correct? So if you're gonna just jump out and grab anyone's viewpoint on anything that you try to draw, just putting your hopes on someone else's brain rather than using your own. I always feel like, God's given me enough insight in Scripture, and if I'm careful to go look at the details, that probably I can accumulate enough facts that will lead me to something that I feel like is adequate for an answer. I went through this when I looked at the sons of God. God is... Hold on a second. I haven't talked at all week. My throat's not helping me here. Sorry. Okay, now let's read 10 to 12 of chapter 3. I better get a cough drop. Someone read 10 to 12.
Therefore come now, and I will send you to Pharaoh, so that you may bring my people, the sons of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the sons of Israel out of Egypt? And he said, certainly I will be with you, and this shall be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall worship God at this mountain.
Okay, so what do you see in those verses?
That the mountain's not Egypt.
Yeah, why do you say that?
Because God's like, when you come out of Egypt, you're going to come here.
Yeah, bring my people out of Egypt to this mountain. Here, they will worship me. When you bring them out. Okay, so these are verses 10 to 12 of chapter 3. This was 3, was it 2? Yeah, no, 3:1. Okay, so 3:1. So this helps us right here, I think, at least initially establish some parameters of what I'm thinking on when I'm getting ready to start drawing my pictures, which you all did this week, right? So as I was researching this and finding all these controversies on this particular subject, my conclusion is on this, just as a point of reference or a note to self, the biblical experts all disagree. Okay? Just knowing that alone do you think that's helpful to you? Okay, so now you go, okay, they're not agreeing. So somebody's right and somebody's wrong, but we don't know. And what is the major issue that you came across when you were doing your map work? When you went to look for a location on city sites, locations of the city sites, what did you find? Yeah. They're either duplicates of them or they don't know for sure. They just move them. One guy puts it here, someone else puts it over here.
And there's it's given a different name. One thing is called one thing. It's when you look at
Right.
it, it's actually.
And some of them, they just don't even know where they were. They haven't even tried to rename where they are because they're just quote, unknown. The exact location unknown in the definition when you do your word studies. So that's helpful information for you. It means nobody knows for sure. So what you and I can do then, what we have the freedom to do then, is to start reasoning and say, okay, hold on to our doctrines. And one of the doctrines we know that we're looking at today when it comes to the parting of the sea and the people passing through, leaving Egypt and going to the place where the mountain of God is, what is that teaching doctrinally? What doctrines of faith are we looking at here?
Just leaving sin, as I tell you, leaving a life of sin to holiness, and also just leaving the bondage of sin to, is that what you're talking
Right,
about?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so redemption, justification, salvation. I mean, now each of those have slight nuances in their definitions when you go and look at them. If we wanted to, we could stop right now and go into Romans 4 through 8, and we could read doctrinally what we're looking at here in these chapters of 14 and 15 of Exodus in particular. And I think I showed that to you way back when we first started doing this study. I showed you a parallel of Romans next to the first 5 books of the Pentateuch as well. Well, right now we're looking at redemption and salvation. Propitiation has already been shown to us. What chapter did we see propitiation? What happened in chapter 14 or 12? Was it 12? What happened? Passover. Yeah. So Passover is the propitiation. So what we're looking at here are all these doctrines. You do not want to violate your known doctrines. So if you know you're looking at a picture, what God has said is you must leave Egypt. And then how often in scriptures that maybe you, even if you don't know right where, but are you familiar that God uses Egypt pictorially in all kinds of scripture verses all over the Bible to give a picture in the mind of people that's grabbable, that's concrete, to say, I brought you out of Egypt, right? And you have left the bondage of sin, and you're now in the freedom of through relationship in Jesus Christ. He brought you out of that. He saved you. He rescued you. He delivered you, right? The blood has been applied. You've got new federal headship. I mean, there's all these pictures. Even Romans 5 covers that as well. So keeping that in mind, don't violate those doctrines. The doctrine we're looking at is him bringing us out of, the picture is taking us out of bondage to sin and to slavery, right? By the way, pictorially, who's Pharaoh? Who does he also depict? A couple of people. Satan and the end time Antichrist, right? So he's depicted as 2 different things. Who's Moses a picture of? Jesus, the deliverer, the redeemer, the prophet, all these things. When you think of Egypt geographically, what is it a picture of? The world, sin, bondage to sin, slavery. So how essential is it that they actually leave Egypt and go into Midian in order for there to be a picture that's maintained, that's salvageable? Yeah, it's totally essential. Now, when you're in your baby step years of coming into faith and you don't know a whole lot of things, you might think it's not important, no big deal. I still believe, and you do, and that's fine. But eventually you start learning and reading, and you have to really make some very clear, delineated marks in the sand that say, this is the doctrine. And so for this doctrine to maintain its picture, you cannot violate it by saying, well, they stayed in Sinai, in the Sinai Peninsula belonging to Egypt, and that they did not leave there, and then have God use that all over his word as a picture of them coming out of Egypt if they didn't leave Egypt. Now, there's a couple of, well, at least one I heard, one biblical author I read on, who said he didn't think that the Sinai belonged to Egypt. Everybody else says it was, and even the historians like Josephus and so forth, they all make reference to Egyptians, that being proper to Egyptian ownage. Now, it doesn't mean they had lots of cities and that kind of, but they did have some. They were mining ore and such from the mines there in the Sinai Peninsula. They had some of their slaves weren't out building bricks. They were over in the Sinai Peninsula digging out the ores and metals out of the earth. So there's that. So keeping those things in mind, doctrine, we're leaving bondage of sin and the world. We are going out into the promised land, what God is promising ahead for them. Okay, now, where did I put my pen? I have the lid. I have the lid and no marker. Okay, so now the next thing is, God says in verse 10, God told Moses what? I'm going to send you to Pharaoh so that you may what? Bring my people out of Egypt. So it sounds to me like he's standing somewhere else and he's saying that you're going to bring them, I'm going to send you there and you're going to bring them out. Well, he's standing on this mountain of God at the time that God is speaking all these words to him. So wherever he's standing, it's not in Egypt, just by the language here. And verse 12, when you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall worship God at this mountain. As if, in other words, they're in a different location and he's going to bring them here to this location. The text strongly implies he was not in Egypt, but that he would leave Midian, go to Egypt, bring them out to this mountain. That's what was said in those verses 10 to 12. So that's using your text to rule for your interpretation. So far, in my thinking, they were not in the Sinai Peninsula, just at this point. But the really cool thing is there's a verse that one of these guys, I think it was Stephen Rudd, and I'll read probably from him at some point if I have time. He's another biblical archaeologist, and when I drew my pictures, did you have fun drawing your pictures? Okay, my first little one on the pictures, my picture of my map is almost identical to his. We're only off by a little bit. And I was going, oh, yay, there's somebody that agrees. And then I found another guy. His name was Ron Wyatt. He also agrees with Stephen Rudd that on the picture that I ended up with, and I was so thankful for that. And the only difference is where on that coastline did they cross over into Midian? Was it up higher or was it down lower into the peak area? And that's where the two of them differ a little bit, but either way, it still takes them leaving the Sinai Peninsula and moving into Midian. But here's the clincher. God gave me a verse through this one commentary, hidden and buried. I'm like, why didn't you do the lead on this verse, guys? I want somebody to go to Galatians 4:25. Galatians is a doctrinal teaching by Paul. He's teaching about salvation, and he's giving a picture, again, imagery, right, about two mountains and two women and who they represent. If you guys remember that, correct? You remember that storyline? Okay, who's got Galatians 4:25? Mm-hmm.
Now this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia and corresponds to the present Jerusalem, for she is in slavery with her children. But the Jerusalem above is free, she is our mother.
Okay, so Paul is citing the location then, and he's doing so under inspiration of God. He's writing scriptural text, right? And he says, Hagar is Mount Sinai, where? In Arabia. I went, oh my gosh, that one to me was like, okay, that's a no-brainer. Why are we arguing about this? Again, it's a lot for me. A lot of it is like once I get accumulatively enough points, and then you hit a verse like this that says it's in Arabia, not Sinai Peninsula, Arabia. I'm like, okay. Then there's more stuff. There's more little kind of subtle things, like when Hagar went out into the wilderness, and eventually when Hagar and Ishmael, when he left, when he was cast out and told to go, right? Because he is going to have no part in the free woman. Where does he end up? Saudi Arabia. So when he left, he went down into that area of the world. And so Egypt, from Canaan down into the Saudi Arabia area is a very natural flow. It has a trade route that takes you down in there. And that is where Hagar and her family landed. So when he quotes this, he says Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia. He's not meaning the Sinai Peninsula. So I thought that was really good. So Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia. I love it. Okay, so that's my foundation on inductive skills, on what I did in order for me to try. Because when I came across the fact that I was battling, there was a battle of perspectives or views on where the route was. And we're still not completely certain of the route because we don't know the actual locations of these cities that are named. Some of them they think they know, some of them they're guessing, but they can't really prove it. It's kind of like Mount Sinai. They can't find any kind of indication that there was a large gathering there at the one in the Sinai Peninsula. But the one in Arabia, they say that there are some, but of course they're not letting us get in there to do any kind of digging and looking much because they're Islamic, they're not Christian. Okay, so that was a little bit of setup to get us into our conversations now. And I think if I did just that one thing with you today, it helps you remember why learning your inductive Bible study skills is so important, and then how you're putting them into application. When you run into complications in doing your Bible study, this is what you do. Stop and remember. Don't violate your known doctrines. Let the text rule for interpretation, and then go to those texts. In the immediate text in Exodus 3, we get all this information. We see that the biblical experts are arguing with one another. But then we have a great cross-reference in Galatians 4:25 that tells us exactly that Mount Sinai is in Arabia. Okay, I'm done with that part. Now we can move on to what we did in our homework part. This part is going to be very typical to what we always do. We want to go through and get our paragraph themes and just see the flow of thought. But there's great opportunity here. I want you to feel the ability to stop and say, when you see it, the imagery, the analogy, the pictorial presentation of doctrines that are being seen by each little thing that you did. When you went through and did your pictures, I don't know how you did them, but as you were doing these pictures, did you notice, you go, oh, that's just like what Jesus did for me. That's just like what my salvation is like. Isn't that just like him to do this way or that way? Did y'all have that experience of worship with the Lord as you were doing your homework? I don't bet you I sure did. I was like, this is amazing. And I think maybe once you have walked with the Lord for a while and have a lot of this knowledge, going back into the simplicity of the visual story actually enhances what you already know, and you see it even better. So we have seen types of Moses, types of Pharaoh, types through Pharaoh, and types through Egypt, right? We've seen imagery, spiritual truths, basically, through subjects such as bondage and slavery, Egypt, Passover, with the pictures of Christ and salvation. Now, this week, the narrative presents imagery on several points. Number one, fleeing from Pharaoh is one of the things. As they are fleeing the wilderness and Pharaoh is pursuing them, what might be a spiritual truth that you saw in that event?
Well, it's like if you try to stop a life of sin, it doesn't die. It's just like, Paul talks about being wretched, even though I want to do good.
But I can't do good. Oh, that's you know what? You're the first person I've heard use that verse correctly. I mean, it's amazing to me because so many people put that as a believer that's trying to flee sin in their life. And that's not what Paul's teaching there at all. He's contrasting people who have dependence on the law and the people who are the Gentiles and how they go to their flesh. And when he's talking about the Jews, he's saying they try to depend on the law and they know the good they should do, but they can't seem to do it. That's what that's in Romans also, chapter 7. Okay, so yes, so it's basically what you're seeing there is a picture of Satan pursuing you. And by the way, even once you do come into faith, does he stop pursuing? To seek to divert you, to stumble you, to cause you to sin if he can possibly do it? Yeah. So that's a beautiful picture. The exit from Egypt, we've already talked about. That's that picture of leaving bondage of sin and going into the freedom of relationship with God. What about the cloud, that pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire? What did you see in that picture? The thing. What was the cloud doing?
It was like a barrier, it was a physical barrier between them and the Egyptians.
Isn't that amazing? In one part of the storyline, we've seen him, he's leading, he's before them, leading them. And then at another point, what we saw when we get into what we see in 14 is he moves to the back of them and acts as a protection between them and the Egyptian army. Isn't that a beautiful? What is there in that for you and I to know about our salvation? If you're in salvation and in covenant with Jesus Christ, what do you know that he is actually doing for you, even if you don't recognize it? What should you be recognizing?
Protecting you, he's guarding you, I mean, he's protecting you.
Yeah, absolutely, all the time.
He talks about him as a good shepherd, he's a good
Yes.
shepherd. I lay down my life for my sheep, I care, I don't let anybody in, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And in those times when you're in your dark, I think about Daniel in the lion's den, had that kind of faith, and there he stood, and he could have been consumed at any moment, and yet God supernaturally intervened in his life. And I think about my life, and I didn't have a Daniel experience. How do you know? How do you know you didn't actually stand in a lion's den and you had no idea, and God protected you? And he got you out of there, and even unbeknowing sometimes. Okay, so these narratives then are demonstrations of truth, correct? That's what we're going to be looking at as we talk through these. You can learn doctrinal terms and definitions in Romans about these things, but a narrative can present insights by the visual and emotional connection that you see in your mind's eye. That's why she had you do this. Drawing out pictures provides opportunity to connect to the story rather than just reading and calculating facts on paper, okay? I know many of you resist the drawing. I am still going to say, how many of you did Revelation with me? How many of you did the drawings?
50%.
And how much help do you think those drawings have been for you?
Good, I can still see them.
You can still see them in your mind's eye. That tells you exactly why Precept puts sometimes drawings into the curriculum. When it's appropriate and when it's going to be extremely beneficial, she wants you to slow down. She wants you to see frame by frame what's actually happening. What that does is it on an emotional level, it connects you with what's going on in the storyline. It's like watching a good movie, and you're gripping the seat, and you're covering your eyes, and you're cheering at the end, right? So God wants you to understand that His Word both gives you instruction in doctrine, but He also gives you narrative about those same doctrines. And this is where we're at. We're in the narrative form through the historical record of these events. And then when you move forward, in pretty much the entire New Testament, but Romans in particular, I keep thinking of, goes through and systematically gives you these doctrinal words and then defines them for you, and then you do your word studies on them and you really parse them out. Then you do cross-referencing on them. So if you ever want to do Romans, it's an excellent way of learning your doctrinal understanding. But narrative brings it to life. Narratives makes you emotionally connect. And different people respond differently to different things. I connect better to the doctrine than I do to the narrative, but when I drew it out, I'm connected. Because it forces you to get in the mind's eye of what's going on for them. Okay, the other thing I want to do is show you one more point, because we're talking about doctrines on this. So I want to separate this, and I want to show you the progression that we're doing so far. We were in Exodus 12. It was Passover, right? What is the doctrine there? We said it earlier. Propitiation and justification, right? Okay, you're justified by the propitiation. You can go to Romans. Let me give you a couple of verses. You can look at them later. Romans 4:25 is a really good, just a single verse that helps you. And also Romans 5:16 through 18. It's 3 verses, 16, 17, and 18 of Romans 5. Those we're going to cover 2 doctrinally explained subjects of propitiation and justification. And that's what we saw in Exodus 12. Then we went to Exodus 13, and weren't you happy to figure out that was all about the unleavened bread, right? And what was that picture of? Sanctification. Okay, very good. And basically this is the believer's walk. Because in that passage, he kept saying, you are to do this, and you are to do this, and you are to do this. It was God saying, now I have handled your propitiation. I have justified you. You are in covenant with me. Now walk in it, right? Sanctification, the believer's walk. Thank you. You read my mind. I couldn't remember what I was doing there. Okay, now we're at Exodus 14. And so what are we seeing here? We're seeing the Red Sea crossing. That's certainly really condensing down the thought of what's going on. They're crossing out of Egypt, right? Out of Egypt. Right? What are we seeing in the Red Sea crossing? Doctrines. Give me some names.
Well, salvation.
Salvation. They were saved from that army.
That word is used in there, especially.
Yes, it is. Sit back and watch see the salvation of your God. And in that salvation, once they were through that Red Sea, when they went through the sea, is there anything that you could know about pictorially? What is that showing you in doctrines that you know about your salvation? Going through the sea, parting of the sea, and you going through the sea.
What I noticed, what I really liked is they really had to do nothing. The only thing that he said, don't fear, stand by and see. So it's just like, and the Lord will fight for you while you keep silent. So
Right.
they really technically did nothing.
No.
They had to move forward. He said, why are you
So-
go forward? So all they had to do is go forward. God did the rest.
So would you call that grace? Okay. I would also call it redemption. They've been redeemed. They've been brought out of one thing and placed into another, right? Redemption. And concerning the water, the parting of the waters, this is really cool. There's a verse in 1 Corinthians 10, 1-4. Somebody look that up real quick. We'll read that one because it pertains to what we're going to cover today. And that is about baptism. That you've been baptized. Somebody read it. Got it? 1 Corinthians 10, 1-4. It's also in Romans 4, chapters 4 through 6, but also chapter 5, 8-10, and 6, chapter 4, if you want to look at those two verses. But 1 Corinthians 10, 1-4. Someone have that? Thank you, Karen.
For I do not want you to be unaware, brethren, that our fathers were all under the cloud and all passed through the sea, and all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and all ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they were drinking from a spiritual rock which followed them, and the rock was Christ.
Okay, very good. Now, you could go on and read all the rest of that. It all ties together beautifully. What is the demonstration in 1 Corinthians? It's a doctrinal teaching. And what is the doctrine that they're teaching? That baptism was pictured in what event? Moses and them going through the sea. So he actually declares this is exactly what this is teaching you. It's baptism. So we're not making it up. We're not stretching it. The scripture actually validates it for us. And that's not the only place it's spoken of. There's a lot of times when it talks about passing through the sea. And you're going to see that very often in scripture, water is used over and over for a variety of symbolic purposes. But in this case, it's about being baptized. So you're baptized by going through the sea. Read the part about the baptism again. Yeah, I know.
All were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea.
Okay, they were all baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. Now, I'm not quite sure what that into Moses means, so I know that could catch you. You go look on it and research it. But it's obviously not talking about him being their savior, right? And the only thing it could possibly be is that he's symbolically representing Christ in the day of Moses. He was symbolically a type of Christ leading them through the water, and they were baptized into Moses, meaning a submersion, a complete change of life, a complete new person. There's all this idea of baptism is that word pickle, to be pickled in the Latin apparently, or was it the Greek? They had a recipe that some ancient writer wrote. Remember that one? And it's the distinction between being dipped and being baptized. Baptized changes the nature, where being dipped just gets you wet. And so, but being baptized is baptized into Moses, but also think later it says baptized into Christ, right? And what do we do when we have baptism in churches? You have been baptized, and then you've been raised to walk in newness of life. It shows you baptized in Christ and raised to walk. Okay, so those are the things that we're looking at. Can you see this? This is really cool. Propitiation, justification, sanctification. That sanctification is not the sanctification that happens at justification. This sanctification is the believer's walk. So it's your participation with God once he's accomplished this. Now you are to participate with him in sanctification. That's about the unleavened bread. 7 days, no leaven. It's a symbolic picture of what they're supposed to be walking like daily. Now we're at the Red Sea. Salvation, grace, redemption, and baptism. Wow. Those are good doctrines. And so now we know that. Now let's talk about what we looked at here. All right, so in Exodus 14, we are not going to do the normal, what are your key words and that kind of stuff. What we're going to do is just read it as a narrative, and we're going to try to break it down into paragraphs. It looks to me like the page was marked with a bold letter at 5, so that means 1 through 4 is our first paragraph. And what did you do for a title there? 1 to 4. Let's title it. What did the Lord do? Okay, so that's what you saw in verses 1 through 4, that he went after, that he hardened his heart, and he did what was the last part of it? And he will. Oh, the Pharaoh is going to chase them. Okay. The Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and Pharaoh will go after Israel. Okay. Anyone else have any other titles for that? I'm not going to be super, there's several points in this first paragraph. Any others? What did you title?
If you get to the heart of it, he's saying that Egyptians will know I'm the Lord. I'm going to be honored through this army, and they're going to be honored the Lord. Yeah. Okay, so that actually could just go in here. He's going to harden him. Pharaoh's going to go after him, and then let's put that last piece in there again. And the Egyptians will know I am the Lord. And so when you kind of look at this part of it, even though it does have a beginning part of their journey kind of indicated, because it talks about he brought them, Israel, to camp between Migdol and the sea, right? And so if you were looking at it purely from the perspective of geographical locations and you're trying to get the journey plotted out so that you could draw your picture that she asks you to do, you can see that part of it too as another subpoint. So you might want to say in subpoints, they camped between Migdol and the sea. So where were you at this point on your map, on your drawing? Do we know for sure where Migdol is? I have it on my map, but I don't remember for sure. Did you remember if that one is a definite, that we know for sure where it is? Let me see if I can look here.
Okay, so in that case, that one, the journey would have gone, if you're looking at the map on the Sinai Peninsula, they'd be coming out of Egypt proper into the Sinai Peninsula. They would have come here. They would have dropped down here. And how was Migdal on this side or on this side of the peninsula? On the left or the right of that Sinai Peninsula? Was it up high? Was it down low?
One's down here, two's up there.
Okay, so they go from here to here. That's interesting.
The same thing, Migdal is what, two separate.
Oh, it's in two possibilities. Okay. Okay. So there you go. We're back to we don't know, right? We're not for sure. It looked, I do remember in the narrative when you get moving here, he says in verse 5 to 9, what? What happens next in this? So we can try to progress this a little bit further.
Pharaoh has a change of heart.
Yeah, he had that change of heart. And what did he do? He did pursue them just as he said he was going to do, right? And what happened?
And overtook them.
Yep, verse 9, he overtook them. So he says he was going to, he will go after them, and sure enough, he did. So when you get to 5 to 9, now what we know is Pharaoh, he overtook Israel by the sea. Now again, so I guess I could do, maybe I can do it. We have Egypt over here, Egypt proper, I'm going to call it. Then we have that Sinai Peninsula, and here we have the water. Let's see if I can remember how the picture is.
Here's your map right there, you can grab. You can just grab one of your maps.
That one might help. Yep. Okay, so there's, once you leave there, there's water in here. This is water, and it goes down, I guess, something like this out into the sea, right? And there's water here, correct? We have over here Midian. This is definitely a really bad map, you guys. I know that, but it's all I'm trying to do is give us something visually to look at when we're talking about this. And I cannot draw on a dry erase board. It's almost impossible. This is the Sinai Peninsula. How do you spell peninsula? P. Okay, the Sinai Peninsula. Okay. So Egypt proper, Sinai Peninsula. They come out. Goshen's over in here somewhere. And they come out. And there's also waters that come up this way that also complicate things. And then there's more speculations, there's like little rivers that connect things and they keep on going up. So, and up above here, we've got the Philistines, right? And he said, don't take them that way. Don't do that, correct? Because if you go that way, there's going to be a problem. They're going to faint in their hearts and they're not going to go with you. So what we know is they've left Goshen and they're coming this way. Now, if you were them, and you know this is still garrisoned and protected by the Egyptian army, are you going to hang out in here? Or are you going to try to hit the border and cross the border? Isn't that what people try to do when they're trying to escape the land that they're being held hostage in? If people want to leave China, they try to leave China. If they want to leave Mexico, they try to leave Mexico. They want to get to a different nation, correct? So I would say in my thinking that it would probably be smart to head just in this direction, to hit that land bridge. They didn't want to go up because of all the Philistines and these mighty armies that were up here. But if they went this way, who knows this route, by the way? Who knows this route? Moses, because Moses has already fled there. He's been through that route already. And by the way, it doesn't tell us this, but he grew up in Egypt. So he would be familiar with all these areas and the things that are around. He may have traveled and even gone to some of these places before this. But Moses fled to Midian. We have Mount Sinai here, and we have another Mount Sinai here as two possible guesses as to where it is. But when they're fleeing, my brain says flee for the border, right? If there's waters here and there's waters here, you're going to hit the top of this water area here. and try to go around it, right? This is the edge of that, or the tip of that Sinai Peninsula. Rather, the tip of the Red Sea. But it's actually called the
That
Gulf.
makes sense. They wouldn't want to go to where they would have to cross water. They don't know that God's going to part it for
No.
them. They don't have boats.
Right.
They want to be near the water.
They want to be near water, but they don't want to go through the water, and they don't want to get captured by the water. What's very interesting is the way that this starts to unfold then is I think you kind of get to see a picture pretty clearly of what, at least approximately what happened here. So what is your title for 5 to 9? Is Pharaoh overtook Israel by the sea. So wherever they were they here at the sea? And they were overtaken, or were they here at the sea and were overtaken? Well, if they're going to leave Egypt, I'm going to put, this is the Egyptian Sinai Peninsula. If they're going to leave Egypt and go to another land in order to exit Egypt, I would think that they would head to the border. And so that they were going to do, as you say, probably go over this or go up here possibly. I don't know. It doesn't say. But what they did have is they had God leading them, right? They had the Shekinah glory, or the pillar, the cloud and of fire leading them. And what do you see in the next paragraph? 10 to 12. Yeah, they became frightened. That was the very first smart thing they actually did, it seems like. Right, so what?
We should mark here comes the first whine. This person's like here to die.
Yeah, a little bit. Although I got to say, it's pretty common. I mean, if it were me, I would be crying. I'd be going, wow, Lord. Right? Actually, if you get in a car accident, or if you encounter something really shocking and scary, what is the first thing out of your mouth? Oh, Lord. Right? Jesus saved me. Right? I mean, it's the first thing off your lips. And that's good. That's a good thing. So in this case, I actually don't give them any grief on this one. But Israel, however, they were being led by that Shekinah, or that pillar of fire. Okay. Israel cried out to the Lord. What else happened in that? And then what did they do? In verse 11 and 12, what did they do? Is this not the word we spoke to you in Egypt, saying, leave us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? Did they really say that? Did they say that? No. Do you remember what they said back in, I think it was in chapter 4? What was their response when Moses took his staff and he performed those miracles for them? They worshiped. They're like, yay, God. If you go back to, somebody look at 4:31. Very quick. So, when the people believed, and when they heard that the Lord was concerned about the sons of Israel, that he had seen their affliction, they bowed low and worshiped. Does that sound like them saying, no, just leave us here, we want to die in Egypt? No. But it's interesting how our mind does an automatic switch. We go to the worst case scenario, we forget all the blessings that God has given us, and we go right into this darkness. And what they do then is they're crying out to the Lord, and they grumble against Moses. Okay, that's just as a side note. Okay, now 13 to 14. I broke this down maybe more than we did in our drawings, but because 1 through 4 is one, and then we did, actually we only did 5 separate, yeah, and then 6 to 9. So that was up here. Israel cried out to the Lord, and what is in 13 and 14?
Moses basically said, just watch. Here comes
Yeah.
the salvation of the Lord. He's going to fight for you.
Watch and see the salvation of the Lord. And what he tells them then is that the Lord will fight for you. Okay. That's what Moses tells them. Don't fear. The Lord is going to do this for you. All right. Tell me about your pictures. Let's go back real quick and look at them. Number one, we're kind of doing a little bit of it up here from my perspective of what I can see that we can clarify for sure. We don't know where Migdal is. We don't know where any of those little cities are for sure. Every map shows them in different locations, or they show a repeat of the same name, like Sinai. There is a Mount Sinai in there, but there's also one in Arabia. So there's two of them. I remember I grew up on Applegate Street. Does anybody ever hear of an Applegate Street in their memory? Any place or what? No? Watergate, of course. No, I lived on Applegate, or Maple Street, or Red Road, or, I mean, if you think of the names that we have for streets and cities and places, we have a Paris, Texas, but is there another Paris in the world? Yes, in a very different location, correct? So my point is, it's common to have repeated names. And certainly when you go from one nation to another, they'll have in their own nation that same name, but it belongs to them. Paris, right? We have a Paris too. So there, right? But theirs is probably nicer than our Paris. I don't know. I've never been to Paris. Has anybody been to Paris, Texas? Me either. Okay. Number two, what do you see? What did you visualize when you did that verse 5? How did you draw that out?
People with their big mouths open and their hands in the air.
Yeah, there you go. That is exactly what I did. Why did we let them go? I'm going to go up here and show you this. Okay. So I have my, am I close enough on this?
Yeah, you're good. It's a little bit out of focus, but it's,
Close?
have to go a bit closer, I think.
Closer?
It's not going to be too super in focus, but
Okay.
it's
All right. Well, at least it gives you general. So here was my little map that I drew. Then here they are, the people. He's raising his fist. I gave a little lightning bolt over a black heart to show their anger and how they were, angry about their decision to let them go. Now we're going to talk about the next part, 6 to 9. What did you do there? Yeah, jump a bunch of.
Soldiers.
Yeah, how many chariots were sent?
600, just the select ones.
Just as the big ones. I mean, the big guns there were 600 plus chariots that chased Israel.
Officer was each one.
So,
he had the best of the best.
okay, so this is pretty mind-boggling when you think about this. So they've left Goshen proper. They've headed to chase them. It says they got them to the sea, and there's these chariots, and they're humongous. They're big. They're like 4 platform wide for 4 men to sit on each chariot, is what I read. I'm like, whoa, it takes 4 men to drive those chariots. And then there's the regular chariots we think about, Ben-Hur, with one guy behind the horse, right? And so they had 600 of them. Think of how much span of land that they are covering when they're coming after them. And so that's a visual that helps you, I think, a lot. If you can multiply your drawing by 600 of the major ones and then add in all the little ones, right? Okay, so that's in 3. Now we're going to do 10 to 12. They're frightened, right? I loved that one. For me, when I drew this one out, this is where I just drew a little man with his mouth open, crying out to God. Can you see it? Do you guys have pictures you want to show and tell? No, nobody does. We don't have any Susans in this room. Susan Dietz, Dyer in the evening group. She is an artist. I mean, she can draw. Anyway, but these are mine. I cheat. I use clip art, and then I look at the clip art and draw my pictures. So that way I have something to look. I can draw if I have something to look at. But in my mind, I can't draw otherwise. So that's how I do it. And if you need to do that, it's perfectly fine. Do that for yourself because it's helpful if you need help on the drawings. Okay. Now we are in 13 to 14 here. Watch and see the salvation of the Lord. So, and he's saying, do not fear. So what Moses has done at this point then is Moses said to the people, can you just visualize him? He's standing there before these multitudes of Israelites. People, don't fear. Did you draw that? Moses saying, don't fear. Yeah, the staff, yes, the staff. Yes, and all the people, only be silent. I'm going, oh, that's hard for me. I don't know if I can be silent. That would take a miracle. All right. All right, 13 and 14. Now let's do the next paragraph. What's going on in the next part, 15 to 18? Yeah, Moses gives them instructions. This was interesting. Did you did you happen to break it down into the instructions for each of the independent people that are going on in this thing? Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the sons of Israel to go forward, and as for you, you are going to lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it. And the sons of Israel shall go through the midst of the sea on dry land. As for me," did you catch it? So there's three things in here. "As for me, behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will" what? What? Lord, why would you do that? Why don't you just stop them? Why does he not want to just stop them?
So they will know that I am.
That's right. Then they will know that I am the Lord. So I'm just going to list it in the order of these events. Number one, Israel is instructed, stand and go, forward. Moses, lift up your staff. And hand. And part the sea. In a way, he says that in such a way as like Moses was supposed to know he was going to do that. I'm like, you, Moses, get busy. Just lift up your hand, part the sea. Don't you know? Don't you know you can part the sea? Because I gave you the staff. I'm like, how would I know that, Lord? I mean, how would you comprehend that that was what God was? Can you imagine? Did we pass the part where it says that they got there and they were told to turn and go down? Where was that at? Have we hit that part yet? I can't remember exactly right where that was.
Talking about turning to avoid the land of the Philistines? Is that what you're talking about?
No, where he told them to turn and go down. They were almost at the border of leaving the land, and he said, turn and go down. And what he did is, by telling them to turn and go down, he boxes them in. And so that great big array of chariots coming gets them boxed in. It's either here or here.
Well, you had him turn back in camp before, so it was a turning back in verse 2.
In verse 2, tell the sons of Israel to turn back and camp before. There we go. So this is where we don't know where this Pi Haritho and between Migdal and the sea, exactly where that is. Some of the people put it right up in this area. Some of them put it down in this area. And I think one is on one side in Midian, the other one's on the other side in Egypt. So if it's way up here, the Egyptian army came like this and had them boxed in. They still had the sea blocking them. But they got to this point right here, and he said, now turn and go down here and camp. So we don't know if they went there, if they went down here. We're not sure. But the two of the guys I read said that they think it's down here, that there is a natural bridge over in here, that even though God can do anything he wants. He can make them cross at any point in that ocean he wants. It doesn't matter how deep it is. He could supernaturally give them solid ground to walk on even for the event, and then it'd be gone. But I know this, that we don't know if it's here, we don't know if it's here. But down here, when it says they're kind of boxed in, how did he say it? To turn back before them, and you shall see the sea opposite by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the sons of Israel, they are wandering aimlessly in the land, and the wilderness has shut them in. The wilderness has shut them in. And so one of them says that he envisioned the idea of the being shut in is getting down here, and there's water here, there's mountains in between. They were stuck. The land had shut them in, the sea had shut them in. The sea had shut them in. Here, the sea hasn't shut them in. They could have gone this way. But God said, no, go this way. So whether it's here or here, I don't know. My drawing, I put them crossing here and then coming down to Sinai. But the other guy has them crossing here and going over to the Sinai in the other way. So it could be here or it could be here. We don't know. All right? And we don't even know if this Sinai that's marked on our map today is the Sinai that's being spoken of. I don't know if there's another one or there was another one and they've renamed it through. We don't know. But what we do know is what was told us here in Galatians 40:25. Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia. Wherever it is, it's in Arabia. So God says, Israel, stand and go. Moses, lift up the staff and part the sea. And then what does the Lord do? Concerning Egypt, I put it with Egypt.
He hardens the hearts of the go after.
Yeah. They will know I am the Lord. Yeah, he does harden their heart, and that's all a part of the process. But in the end, he says, and when I do this, so it looks to Egypt, it looks to Pharaoh like, you guys are crazy. You're wandering around in the desert. You're lost. You don't even know where you're going. But God is leading them. And God says, no, I want you to go. And they were about to cross over up here. They would have been free and fancy loose and foot free because Egypt would not have invaded Midian. It would have looked like an invasion by the people of that nation, and they would have gone to war with them. Right? I mean, when Japan came to Pearl Harbor, did we not fight back? Yeah. So in my mind, I'm going, just the logic of this, if they had gone here and Pharaoh had come after them, that would not have worked. But Pharaoh didn't have to worry about that because God had them turn and come back down here. And the army now, with all these masses of chariots, is coming like this, and he's boxing them in. Isn't that amazing?
Which verse was that?
2 and 3 of Exodus 14. They were to be between Migdol and the sea. But in verse 2, it says, tell the sons of Israel to turn back. What had happened is that in 13, go back to 13, I think. Let's see. They went, hence God led the people in chapter 13, verse 18. God led the people around by the way of the wilderness to the Red Sea. And the sons of Israel went up in martial array from the land of Egypt. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had the sons of Israel solemnly swear, saying, God will surely take care of you, and you shall carry my bones from here with you. Then they set out from Succoth and camped in Etham. And my understanding is Etham is up in here. Somewhere, either there or right in here. It's very close to the top of that area. And then it says, so at Etham, on the edge of the wilderness. So that tells you that if it's on the edge of the wilderness, what's just beyond that? Something else, either someone else's wilderness or another nation. They were at the edge of it. So it sounds to me like they were almost on the edge of leaving Egypt, and then God says, no, not so fast. I want these people to know that I am the Lord. I want you to go down. And, you know, God who knows the end from the beginning, we don't know this in the storyline. They don't know this as it's happening to them. But God is also laying foundation pieces of pictures for salvation and redemption and salvation and all these things that he's doing. And so he's saying, look, if I'm going to teach you about my salvation, my grace, my redemption, and how I'm going to baptize you through the sea, how do you enter through the sea? How can you go into the sea? You have to go by faith. When the Pharaoh and his army went into the sea, did they get to pass through? What was their purpose for being in the sea? They were pursuing Israel to overtake them and kill them, right? They did not go by faith. They went by evil intent. So guess what happens if you try to enter into the presence of God or into the promised land of God, but you do it with an ulterior motive other than what God tells you? It has to be by faith, and it's by grace that you will be saved. The picture is all there. So God is saying, look, you don't get it yet, but I'm having you turn and go back down and be boxed in so that the Egyptian army thinks you're crazy, and then they're going to know that I am the Lord when I do this mighty thing. Isn't that amazing? I thought it was really good, but this back part here in Exodus 13, the last paragraph of Exodus 13, leads you into this storyline, and it starts you up here, and it leads you here. Now, some of the maps say they come here and then go this way. I'm like, why would they do that? I would beeline straight arrow to a freedom land somewhere, right? To another nation. I wouldn't go down in here in the Sinai where I knew I'd be boxed in and an army is chasing me. But the Lord wanted them, and I think he wanted to make it perfectly clear to Israel, I'm going to take you where you don't understand in order to do something miraculous on your behalf. So he takes them here, they turn down, or maybe they went this way. I think they went this way. And I don't know how far down they went. That's the only thing I don't know for sure. Okay, and then he's...
Question that maybe you know the answer to, and if you don't, that's fine.
Okay.
Is there anywhere in Scripture where it gives an idea of how long this took?
Yes, okay. No, no,
on
you
floods,
can, right, you can accumulate it. I've got authors here for you.
Okay.
Stephen Rudd, and who was the other guy? There's another guy. Anyway, if
That
you...
can also help you
if-
if you know it took like 6 months, then maybe they did this one.
Yeah.
It only took a week. I don't know how long
Right.
it took to walk.
Right.
Distance anyway.
I don't know the answer because
Okay,
I
I'm
didn't care enough to spend my time looking at that particular thing. But Stephen Rudd has got, this is one article of his. Look at this. This is amazing. Pages and pages of apologetics on what he believes happened and why. He gives you cross-references. He gives you other people to go and look at. You can spend a year doing this. I mean, he's devoted his whole life to this, right? This is a career for this man. For you and I, we're like, just tell me the bottom line, you know. But he goes through the wilderness, Bible references to the wilderness of Egypt. He does the Exodus route. Wilderness of Egypt is the Sinai Peninsula. Okay, so Exodus route. Wilderness of Egypt is the wilderness of Egypt is the Sinai Peninsula. So in other words, Mount Sinai could not be in the Sinai Peninsula because it's Egypt, and they were leaving Egypt. So he hounds on that very strongly. Bible references to the wilderness of Egypt. He gives all these places. Talks about the northern border, the southern border. Talks about Josephus in here. He gives. He's very bold. Most Bible maps are wrong because they fail to recognize the river of Egypt as the border between Egypt and Israel. So he also gives you a lot of land points. Remember when God gave the promise to Abraham that he was going to give him the land? And he said, from the river Euphrates to the river of Egypt. So he gave him 2 boundary markers. Well, those are still the boundary markers even today. And so he says, that's another reason a lot of these people get it wrong. And so if you really, really want to dig this out, you can. It's very, very tedious. He goes into Septuagint. He goes into Polybus, who is a writer, into Josephus. Ancient sources set the border of Egypt at the Wadi El Arish and the Arish Taru, I don't know, something. 1457 BC. Thumosis III in the Battle of Megiddo, he gives some stuff there. He talks about Ramses II, so he goes into history. So it's very, very thorough. And this is only one of a mega mountain of articles that he has written. So I only printed one off because that's all the paper I wanted to devote to it. But just to show you that he's thorough. And anyway, so we're there. Now where are we here? 15 days. Let's go to 19 and 20. I'll put it up here. 19 and 20.
So there's the angel of God that was going in the front of the camp of Israel now moves behind them, and it became between the camp of Egypt and Israel, so that cloud moved.
Okay, the angel of God did what?
It moved from in front of the camp of Israel to behind it to where now it's separated. It came between the camp of Egypt and camp of Israel.
Okay, to protect them from Egypt. Okay, let's do it that way. The angel of God moved. Now this is very interesting. Here again now we see, what verse are you in where you're seeing that word, angel of God? I don't know if I marked it.
19.
Okay, the pillar. Okay, the angel of God. What does that remind you of as far as what we've already studied in Exodus so far?
It's Jesus.
It's Jesus. You're going to go back to chapter, where was it 6, where he talks about the, no, it was in chapter 3 where he meets God on the mountain. And it says, and he was in the burning bush. And it says, the angel of the Lord. And we went through all that. And we saw this is a theophany, a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ in the bush. And as the conversation goes on, it says, and he said to the bush, basically, Lord. So whatever it is that he's seeing in that bush is the angel. The angel is in the bush. And the angel is the Lord. So we already resolved that in our earlier thing. So now when it says the angel of God again, what do you know that still is? It's the same burning bush appearance, but it's now in a different...
Well, picture-wise, it makes sense that it's the pre-incarnate Jesus.
Of course it does. Yeah.
And protecting them.
Yes.
It works better than it being just
An
a random angel.
An angel. And yes, because the salvation, he says, see and watch the salvation of the Lord. So it's the Lord that's doing this, not an angel and not Moses, although those two are, there may be angels and Moses in the mix along the way. But the angel of the Lord, when it says the angel of God itself, and it's already in the text itself of Exodus, we've already defined back in chapter 3 that this is speaking of the Lord being that angel that's seen in the burning bush, and now it is shown here in the pillar of cloud and in that pillar of fire. Okay, so what did you title this? The angel of God moved to protect them from the Egyptians. Okay, so God moved to stand between Egypt and Israel so they did not come near one another, right? Okay. How am I doing on time?
You got about a half hour.
Okay, I have to hurry along a little bit, but it's too much to cover. Okay, 21 to 25. So here I have drawn on my observation worksheet Moses standing with the staff, and there's Pharaoh coming after him on his little chariot. I actually added a clip art of a map on the back side of this one too in my observation worksheet, which was helpful. Some little tips I give to you to help. Okay, what did you see in 21 to 25?
Moses raises his staff and the sea splits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he raises the staff, and what did Israel do?
Walks across dry
Yeah.
land.
Why do you think it says that? Dry land.
Well, because water that's been, sand that's been covered by water for whoever knows, like it's wet way down.
Yes, and for a long time.
It's not gonna be like a road, it would be a mess to walk across.
And what happened to Egypt in this particular paragraph, 21 to 25?
They pursued.
Yeah, they had pursued, but what they were brought through on dry land. What was Egypt brought to?
Mud.
Yeah, mud, but also, did it give you a statement in there? Confusion. I thought that was really interesting. That on the one hand, those who are seeking God and following Him through the sea, through the baptism of the water, by faith, His grace extended to us, and we are following Him. He gives us dry land. That's a beautiful picture, is it not? So that your foot does not stumble. If you keep your eyes on Him, He will not allow you to stumble. And that does not mean there won't be trials and tribulations. Stumbling is talking about the becoming a victim then to the ones who are pursuing you. You won't become a victim as long as you keep your eyesight on Jesus. And He's promised us that victory. They went through on dry land, and Egypt was brought to confusion. All right, 26 to 30.
First came back over the edge.
Yeah, I love this. The Lord overthrew them. He overthrew the Egyptians. In the sea. Now there's some more imagery that we haven't talked about, but the idea of the sea and the deep and all that comes into play here, right? The seas, the waters. One of these places, it talks about the deep too. I don't know where. Oh, I know. It's in the next chat. It's in the 15, I think. Okay. All right. Over through. Any comments? Any insights?
Should that be 26 to 29?
26 to.
Because 30 is the old one. Thus the Lord saved them.
And 31 is the last one. The Lord saved Israel that day, and they feared and believed. Yeah. The Lord overthrew the Egyptians 26 to 30. I have 26 to 30 as a paragraph. What did
I'm just going by the bold.
I realize that,
That's all I'm
but
asking. You moved it.
I moved it because it does say thus, which should indicate a new thing, but then you'd be putting 2 points that are opposing one another in one title, and you can do it that way if you want. It's up to you. You know that I fudge on these.
No, I was just asking if you fudged it or if you.
Yeah. Yes.
With 26 to 30 in the pictures,
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
but 31 standing alone.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. The pictures also are divided differently than even our paragraphs. I thought about doing all my paragraphs according to our pictures and just paragraph title each of the pictures, but it encompassed so much and it missed some major points, I thought, along the way. But we do see, thus the Lord saved Israel in 30, right? And then what do you see in 31? The outcome?
They feared the Lord and believed in the Lord.
Yeah.
For all of what, 10 seconds?
Yeah, all of 10 seconds. So the Lord saved them. What is the application of that for you and I? 1 minute, you're at your bottom, rock bottom. Most of us, that's how we come to God, at rock bottom. We turn to the Lord, He saves us, and we are, how do you feel when you first get saved? Do you remember that day? Do you remember that experience? I have a young, brand new believer in my evening group. Her name is Grace. She is so excited about everything. I mean, it's like, oh, you just would not believe this. And she just tells all these, everything is on hyperdrive and enthusiastic and just filled with so much joy. How did that go for you? You can't even tell me how joyful you felt. You just went dead silent. It's just amazing to me how quickly we wane. We stop having that deep, passionate, what we're going to enter into in Exodus 15 is the passion that they felt in the immediate aftermath of God saving them. But did you notice by the time you get to the end of 15, they're already grumbling again. So this is how fickle humanity is. And if you want to know who is God and who is man, here's a picture. Exodus is really laying it out for us. So he saved Israel. And Israel feared and believed the Lord. And I cannot tell you how many word studies, pages and pages and pages. Did anybody find words that they really felt like they wanted to discuss before we move into 15 real quick? There's so much in it that it's crazy. And this is so poorly addressed because it's like hypersonic, trying to run through a mountain. Literally each paragraph, somebody told me that they're doing this in their church, and they did 2 verses. That was the pastor's entire sermon, 2 verses. I'm like, that figures. They're going to get the in-depth study, and I'm going to get this. Huh?
You want to title chapter?
Yeah, how did you title chapter 14? Let me see if I even remember to title it. I did. How did you title chapter 14?
The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord.
Okay, that's good. The Egyptians. Okay, you got half the story. What's the other half of the story?
He emphasized it twice.
Yes, he did.
That was pretty important.
Okay. It is important, but it's only half of it.
Israel saved.
Israel's saved. This literally, Exodus 14 is your salvation doctrine. How do you get saved? And he's showing you piece by piece by piece, frame by frame by frame, as you go through each of your little pictures, you are drawing out the visualization of what salvation is, how it occurs in your life. And you have to take their scenario and think back in your life and say, where was I? What was I like? Was I a grumbler? Was I following after pagan things? Was I satisfied to stay underneath the rulership of the world and the things of the world, which is what they were in? And at some point here we saw they were saying, why didn't you leave us there, right? Were there no graves in Egypt that you've taken us away to die in the wilderness? I mean, I can say that sometimes. There have been times when in my journey with the Lord, I think, Lord, why is it all the world seems to have it so easy? But I love you. I'm wanting to serve you. I'm doing my best here, and I am so thankful to you for what you've done for me. But really, Lord, this, right? It's so, listen, we're all this. Don't ever think that you are alone in your frustration, in your faith walk. God is not going to make it easy because you're not going to be refined with the easy. The easy route, the dry, flat land, that was great. They got the other side, they rejoiced, and it was a nanosecond and they were grumbling. That is the journey of faith walk. So when you did your pictures, then what we see is the angel of God moved to protect them. So I had a picture of, let's see, what is that? That is 19 and 20. Okay. So I showed a picture of the Egyptians on one side in darkness and Israel having light. Did you all notice that on one side they had light, but they were cast into confusion and darkness behind when the angel of the Lord went between them? I thought that was really cool. So they're in this dark. It's dark. First of all, it's night. And God does not shine light on them. He shines his light on his people who are on the other side. And he's put himself between them and the Egyptian army so that the Egyptian army remains in darkness and they're stumbling around and they're in confusion. But God's people have dry land to walk on and they have the light. Isn't that amazing? Did you think of that when you drew that picture? Did you draw that picture? I hope you did. 21 and 25, again, more about the idea of the Egyptian is brought into confusion in verse 24, and Israel went on through on dry land in 22. Now, you go to 26 to 30 on the picture, and we see what happened. I want to sing that old song, The Bottom of the Deep Blue Sea. Do you guys remember that song? Was it Bedknobs and Broomsticks? And they're floating along. Right, anyway, sorry, I don't sing well. But anyway, I just did all of these little green heads with the crown of Pharaoh down there underneath the sea, and they've been drowned in the sea. The Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea, and the Lord saved Israel. It even talked about what happened with the corpses once they had been drowned in the sea. They were washing up on the banks of the edge of the show dead. I mean, that's a verification. They didn't just go away, they are dead. Yeah. And I think about the body armor they all would have had on too, and all that gold and heavy metal, and yeah. Okay, and then Israel feared and believed the Lord. This one was fun. It just shows them praising God and lifting their hands to him in this beautiful moment. Okay. So that is it. Now, I had all these things I could have read to you, but I know we're going to run out of time. One of the major points here from this Jewish writer that I said I can't hardly even understand what he's talking about. He talks a lot about Kabbalah and all these other weird things. But he does give one good point. Critical view. Modern scholars differ widely as to the exact geographical position of Mount Sinai. And basically there are two of them. There's one in the Sinai Peninsula, there's one in Saudi Arabia. So that at least he did put as a confirmation. When I did Stephen Rudd, there was a piece in here I wanted to read. Oh, this is it. This is Ron Wyatt. Ron Wyatt did a really good job. He gives us inspired scripture lessons. He says 7 lessons to learn from Exodus 14. And I'm just going to rattle them off. They are on the chart, so when you get the chart, you will have all of these in bullet form on here. And I also gave you the what do you call it, the site address, so that you could find it for yourself if you wanted to. And it's in here, and it's what he does is he lists his 7 points of spiritual truths, and then he goes into deep explanation and giving you all the cross-referencing. I had a lot of homework, you guys. It was a big week. Okay. Inspired scripture, 7 lessons from what we just talked about here I think are helpful. Pharaoh's pursuit pictures Satan, who seeks to chase and put you back into bondage. Agree? Yeah. Fear at the sight of oppressors or oppression is a result of taking your eyes off of God. True? In the instructions to have no fear and be quiet and see the salvation of the Lord, this teaches us to trust God and to God who will fight your battles for you. I mean, when you're in a scenario where you can't fight yourself, your hands are tied and you're at your end, you let the Lord do it. You just say, Lord, I'm trusting you. I can't fix this, so I give it up to you. That's what you have to do. It relieves the stress. It teaches you to depend on him when there seems no way, he makes a way. Nothing is impossible for him. He will bring it about. Now, he may not bring it about the way you wanted it, but he will bring it to an end and you will survive. Number 4, the command to advance toward the sea is a lesson in faith in times of tribulation. This is very interesting. He protected the Jews, positioning himself between the enemy and his children. I love that particular point. What a visual that can be for you. I don't know if you drew that out. I hope you did. But like you said earlier, I can still see it in my mind. When you draw that picture of the Shekinah glory or the cloud of God intervening and standing in the gap between Israel and the pursuer of the enemies of God, it is such a comforting thing to know that truly, we don't see it, but truly, that's what you have. You have a divine protector. He stands between you and the enemy of God. 5, the crossing through the sea, according to the New Testament commentary by Paul, is a picture of our being baptized. Because this is back to what I did earlier. With God's living waters, we pass over, out of bondage, into the eternal promised land. It's an early picture of the eventual new heaven and new earth. But is there a future thing that's coming here for them as well? Do they have a promised land they are actually heading for yet? Yes, they do. They're going to be going to Canaan, to the land God promised Abraham by promise. But is that the end of the journey for Christians, for people who believe in God? No. There's an eternal promised land in the heavens. So it's got a progressive, there's a short-term fulfillment of this yet future promise. At this point, they're saved, but they haven't yet received that promised land. So it's a short-term promise that's going to be fulfilled 40 years later because of their messing up. But then there's a long-term promise of 2 more things that are yet to coming ahead. What's going to God do for Israel in the end times? An eternal kingdom on the earth, a heavenly kingdom, Christ, the kingdom, the millennial kingdom of Jesus Christ on this earth. And then after that, what? The eternal heavenly kingdom. So it's really cool. These pictures are beautiful. Pharaoh's destruction into the deep pictures God's judgment and destruction of his enemies. It's a beautiful lesson to learn. That's a picture for you. That's the purpose for the narrative here. That's the purpose for God designing an event in history to be recorded on the pages of his written word for you and I to learn from it. And that then when we move into the doctrines in the New Testament and learn them more mechanically through Romans and Corinthians and Galatians and all these other places, we are going to be able to go back and our hearts will grab hold of those pictures that we saw through these live events. The miracles, number 7, the miracle of the Red Sea crossing is a true historical event that pictures redemption and salvation. You believe in a powerful and sovereign God, nothing is impossible for him. But let me tell you what, the world will try to convince you this did not happen. Just like, God did not create in 6 days and rest on the 7th. No, it was millions of years, according to them, right? You must this day choose whom you shall serve. You must decide, do you believe God or do you not believe God? Even when you go to your commentaries and to your, I've even found dictionaries sometimes are off. Because again, dictionaries are written by who? People with presuppositions about things. And they're coming to it from their perspective. So you still have to always handle all those things outside of the Word of God with an open hand and allow God to give you the truths that you need and glean out of it, but leave the stuff that you can't be absolutely certain. When we look at this, what we can be certain of is what we saw in Exodus 3, and what we see in Galatians 4, and then what we see in the middle is this conflict, what the world thinks, and they don't know, and they can't decide. But what we all know is it happened, right? It happened. I love that.
10 minutes.
10 minutes to do the Song of Israel. This is going to be tough. Okay, and I hardly begun to get into all that. So let's look at this one. I'm going to do this one very simply for us, okay? Because what I did is I found an article by David 𝐂𝐸𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 sermon this morning on what we were looking at today, just for fun. But David goes through and he actually breaks this down by stanzas. I didn't know it was possible to do that. So I had initially gone through all of Exodus 15 and wrote all my paragraphs according to what I thought, right? Then when I read this, I went, oh, this is much simpler, and actually I think it makes it make more sense, especially if it's within each stanza, there's multiple points, correct? But he organizes them so that you understand how the Hebrews do things. The subject matter of chiasms comes into play, how it lays out by chiasm. Repeated message and then resounding, repeating message. So they get a message on this side, and it gets on this side, and it gets on this side, and then there's a middle point. And so it literally does this, right? Like you're singing, it's not this. You can tell I'm not a music person. Nobody would know what to do with me. Okay, so I am going to use David's outline and give it to you in that format. Is that okay with you? So it may not be exactly what you did.
And Katie, next time, we're only doing chapter 16, so if you need to expand on 15, you could probably do it next time also.
Okay, good. Well, I don't feel like I need to. Don't you feel like everything that was said in 15 just recapped all they were doing is singing back to God exactly what he did. But I do want to make one point. I think this is really good. Do you remember back in Exodus 6, verse 3? Somebody go back to 6:3 in Exodus. Because this is the foundation of what God is doing through all these signs, wonders, and miracles that he's been doing with the plagues in Egypt and the bringing them out and the passing through the sea, right? And now they're at a place of worshiping him because of what he has done. What did he say back in Exodus chapter 6, verse 3? It might be more than that, but if somebody can find that section, somebody read it.
I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as God Almighty, but by my name, Lord, I did not make myself known to them.
Okay, and now put that into a positive statement. So what is he saying he's going to do for for Israel? He is going to make himself known by his name, Lord. By my name, Lord, I had not made myself known. Rather, he had been a covenant God to them. He had been, although I got to say throughout Genesis, Lord does come up. However, he had not demonstrated it in these ways. This is powerful demonstration. So what's really cool about the Exodus 15 is, as you're going through there, you can say, this is who the Lord is. He wants to show to them that he is these things. If you had to look through here really quickly, just tell me with your eyeball, who is the Lord according to what you're looking at here? Look for all your Lord passages. He is highly exalted. Go on. He is my strength and song. He is my salvation. He is a warrior, majestic in power. He shatters the enemies. Okay, so you're getting it? I feel like what we're seeing in 15 kind of answers what he said back in chapter 6, where he said, I have not made myself known in this way yet, but now I'm going to. And he proceeds to do all these things. Now we're at the other side of the sea, and he's done them. Now they're going, this is who the Lord is. Now I see him as the Lord.
Not even to mention, there were only 70 people plus who came into Egypt to he's making himself known to a lot.
Well, that's true too, but yeah. But I think it's the lordship idea is the thing that he really wants. So this is the first stanza, okay? And it's going to be verses 1 through 5. And in that, all I'm going to do is list some of those things that you just said. The Lord is a warrior. I think on the whole, those first 5 verses talk about him being a warrior. But in that, he is highly exalted, but he is our strength, my strength, and salvation. If you look on 1 through 5 on the whole, you see the chariots, you see him casting them into the sea. He talks about horse and its rider. He is hurled into the sea. He repeats that. His strength. He's become my salvation and my song, and I will praise him because of these things. I'm going to exalt him because of these things. He is a warrior. I think he is a warrior is the central message in those first 5 verses. Okay, then we've got the second stanza. Okay, I'm going to mark that off again. I'm going to try to do this in a way that you can kind of see how it goes here. The second stanza is 6 to 10. Isn't that cool? Jumps a lot, right? Moving right along. 6 to 10. What do we see about him there? Well, the very first statement gives you a pretty good clue. He is majestic in power. And everything in there talks about what? What keeps getting repeated? His right hand, his shattering, his nostrils, they blow, and the waters, it just shows power and strength. And all. So he is majestic in power, right? So all of the imagery that's given into you after that is he overthrows the enemy. Okay, so he overthrows the Lord is majestic in power. The Lord is a warrior. And then you could add in other things. What else do you see in there? He shatters the enemy. His nostrils blow and do these things to the waters. Oh, I wanted to read a verse about this because there was a big issue about the waters. Did he actually part the waters in such a way that the people walked over, and how did that happen? And so what does human beings try to do? Find natural phenomenon to explain it, right? I think it's very interesting. Oh, it must have been at the Reed Sea, not the Red Sea, because the Reed Sea is very shallow. And I'm sure you've all heard the joke. Oh, go ahead. That's interesting how an entire army of 600,000 chariots drowned in 8 or 10 inches of water. So that's ridiculous. And my bigger thought is the doctrines that we know about God. He spoke and the world was created. Do you not think he could speak and have Moses lift the symbolic picture of God's staff over the waters and that the waters would part? I mean, why could that not happen? So here, go to Psalm 77. I want someone to read 16 to 20. Very quick, fast. Whoever gets there first gets it. Because this is a really good picture of what actually is happening according to Scripture with the waters being parted.
Which verse?
16 to 20 of 77. Psalm 77. 16 to 20.
The waters saw you, O God. The waters saw you. They were in anguish. The deeps also trembled. The clouds poured out water. The skies gave forth a sound. Your arrows flashed here and there. The sound of your thunder was in the whirlwind. The lightnings lit up the world. The earth trembled and shook. Your way was in the sea, and your paths in the mighty waters, and your footprints may not be known. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron.
Wow. So interesting in the Psalms where they're singing these truths about who God is, who is the Lord, as he's trying to present himself to them. By my name, the Lord, I am going to make myself known to them. And in that, what he does is he parts the sea. Did he have to do it by a natural phenomenon and a wind that blows, and actually in nature it happens even today? No, this is a mighty wonder. This is a miracle moment. This is not something minor. And this Psalm 77, it says, and the waters themselves trembled at God. That is amazing.
Well, and if you think about people trying to say it had to be a natural phenomenon. Okay, there was a pillar of fire wandering around. Like, do we think that you can do other things? Because that's not a natural phenomenon at all.
Yeah. It's just, to me, that's lack of faith. Again, there's no faith. Now the next one, our third stanza is third stanza. How close am I on time? Am I getting?
Just keep going.
Okay, I'm good, huh? Okay, third stanza is going to be 11 to 13. All right, and this one is what? What is going on in 11 to 13? The first thing we're said is that he's holiness, but there's a question that starts at the beginning of 11. Who is like you? Where? Among the gods. Now, why might that be interjected into this praise of God?
Just came out of Egypt.
They just came out of Egypt. And what had God just done to all the Egyptian gods? He made them humiliated, right? He showed them as no gods at all. So I put that as my major theme here. Who is like the Lord? You could just leave it like that. Who is like the Lord? But you could go on and say among the gods. I'm going to put that one as little g. Who is like the Lord among the gods? The Lord has done what? What does it say he has done for us in verse 13? In your loving kindness, what word is that? That's a covenant term, loving kindness of covenant. You have led the people whom you have what? Redeemed. Thank you. Are you all following me? In verse 13. In your strength, you have guided them to your holy habitation. Now that's speaking about about this Mount Sinai. To your holy habitation. Now, it's not the holy habitation in Jerusalem yet, but it's the place that they called the mountain of God, and upon which he says you stand on holy ground. Right? So I think he's speaking about this Mount Sinai there, right? Who is like the Lord? The Lord has redeemed his people. And what else is the Lord? The Lord has redeemed. And what else do you learn about him? The Lord is what? Majestic in holiness. That's how I titled it. But I started it with who is like the Lord, because there's no one like the Lord. He's a redeemer and he's holy. And if he wants them to know who he is as the Lord, those are two very strong qualities, I think, that get brought out here in this. Then we see in 14 to 18, our fourth stanza. And now we're going 14 to 18. Now what is the major subject going on here?
How they're responding to all that's happened.
Yeah, how the nations are responding, right? The people who are not Israel. Nations have heard, and how did they respond? They're in terror and fear. They are afraid, right? And not only they are, how afraid are they? What happens to them? They tremble? Yeah, motionless. Have you ever been so frightened that you're just standing there frozen in your tracks? My husband talks about that with his gun safety trainings, that there are people, some people, their first response is to freeze. You know, they can't think, they can't move. And that is very common, especially when you're in great fear. But the nations, this stanza is about what the nations are doing in response to all that God has done. They're praising God. He's a warrior. He's my strength. He's my salvation. He's majestic in power. He overthrows the enemies. Who is like the Lord among the gods? Egypt. Right? The Lord has redeemed us, and the Lord is majestic in holiness. Then he says here, but the nations? The nations have heard and are afraid. Okay? And they're made motionless. And I think that's very interesting, because what he's saying is he stopped them in their tracks, and God has put it to an end. Put this picture right here into your salvation journey that you're being pictured in this Exodus account. You have gone through the sea. You're on the other side. He has covered them with water. They're dead. And the other nations around the world are hearing. And one of the things that one of these guys, I can't remember which one, but he says, when you go into the cross references, one of them is Rahab. 40 years later, they're still talking about this in the nations, right? So the nations are hearing about it. The Philistines are hearing, the Canaanites are hearing, Rahab and her, wherever she was on the other side of the Jordan, she heard about it. They are knowing of it, and it has caused the nations to be motionless. When they showed up, they're like a little afraid of Israel. One of the reasons they didn't want to let them pass through their areas was they were afraid. They were afraid of Israel's God because of what the stories have come out. So they are made motionless, and this is by God's design. He wants them to know that Egypt is, what was it that he says, that Egypt will know that I am the Lord. He wants them to know that he is the Lord. And that's what he's doing. Not only Egypt, but all the nations are going to hear of this also. Now, there are those two short-term things. He talks about starting in 17 and 18, the last two parts of this. He says, and you will bring. Did you notice how he makes verb tense change? So in the beginning, you have. Starting in verse 17 and 18, he says, and you will. So a part of it is a reflection back on what God has done for them, and it's a picture. And now it starts with the pictures of things that God is yet to do for them. That they have confidence. He has promised these things, and He will do them. If He did this for them, He will also do these other things which He has promised them. How does that apply to us? Has God done for you? Has God given your salvation? What has He not yet given you? I don't know about you, but I don't have that new body yet. I want that glorified body. I'm tired of this weak, sick one all the time, right? So, I mean, for Israel, it was all about the land, about the promised land. So in here he says, you will bring them and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance. The place, O Lord, which you have made for your dwelling, the sanctuary, O Lord, which your hands have established. The Lord shall reign forever and ever. So in the verse 17, it almost sounds like he's talking about the land of Canaan, which is going to be given to Israel. But by the time you get to verse 18, he concludes it with forever and ever. And you're like, oh, now we're in the millennial kingdom, right? And then moving forward into the eternal kingdom. So you can see that you're transcending several major marks of historical record that have been promised by God. Each of them are yet future for Israel at this point. For us, in hindsight, we've already got Israel having gotten their land initially, but they haven't gotten all of it. So they never did get that land fulfilled. They didn't get that part of the promise totally fulfilled, where they were on the land and living in security and Jesus was their king. We're waiting for that day yet. So these are all things yet future. Mark verse 17, you will, with a clock, because it's future tense, and that indicates for you a major change right here.
You're already about 5 minutes over.
Okay, 17 and 18. Now, 19 is the last one, the fifth stanza, and it closes here. Let's see here. Fifth. Okay, I'm going to mark it. The fifth stanza is just one verse. It's 19. And in 19, what does he do? Or what happens in 19?
Contrast of the Egypt, the chariots and horsemen went to the sea and drowned, but the sons of Israel walked on dry land.
So for Pharaoh and his chariots and his horsemen, he makes a contrast statement. It's like a final synopsis. He capitalizes everything into two contrasting statements. This is what happened to Egypt. This is what happened for Israel. So it's a final stanza, a closing stanza. And it just contrasts Egypt and Israel. Okay, so that's that. Now, I'm not going to write the last two ones on the board. I'm just going to give them to you. Then we move immediately. I wish we had time to go into all this, and maybe, like you said, next week we might have time to go back. I love these storylines, but for sure, when you hit 22 to 25, they have been how long without water? 3 days, no water. And if you're in a hot, blistering, that's a long time. And as a matter of fact, the articles I read on this said that's about the length you could make it. After that, you would begin to die. So in 3 days, no water. Now, why would God do that? He just took them through salvation, brought them out of Egyptian bondage. Pictorially, they are now out of bondage to the world, bondage to sin, being pursued by Satan. He's dead in the sea. It's a literal truth, even though we know he's still here causing trouble, but he has no power over us. He has been conquered. It's done, right? So now we see with 22 to 25, no water, what does the people do? Whine and complain. Back to grumbling. Again, I don't know that I can blame them, but they get there, they're dying of thirst. They get there in the waters of Marah, and they couldn't drink them, for they were bitter. Therefore, it was named Marah. I'm like, okay, Bueller. That's just what comes to my head. It's so funny. I get such a chuckle out of God's word sometimes. So the people grumbled at Moses, saying, "What shall we drink?" What does the Lord do? I love it. It's a tree. And by a tree, what did he do with the water? The bitter waters, what? Became sweet. Now, there is article after article on this, and we'll talk about it maybe next week if we have time. But if not, you can read on this on your own about what chemically happened because of a certain tree being put into water and what the pictures might be there spiritually. They go on and on. But the major emphasis here is, what is that tree pictorially? It's the cross. It's the bitter waters made sweet by the cross. I love that. What a beautiful picture. God provides healing of water. There he made for them also a statute and a regulation. You're like, oh, wait a minute. Didn't we just come through by grace and faith, and now we're talking about statutes and regulations? What's happening? Well, you got to remember, the cross has not come yet. We're not in a covenant of grace yet. They're underneath, at this point, the covenant of Abraham, the promise to bring them out. Yeah, he's setting up the tutor. He's getting them set up. So he's beginning to introduce them to the idea, if you obey me, I will bless you. Obey and be blessed, disobey and be cursed. Wait till we get to the manna and the no more water again later and the rock that has to be hit. It's going to all start making sense. And he said, if you will, number 1, give earnest heed to the voice of the Lord your God. Number 2, do what is right. Number 3, give ear to his commandments. Number 4, keep all his statutes. I will put none of these diseases on you which I have put on the Egyptians, for I, the Lord, am your healer. So what he's saying here is, our lives are not made perfect once we come into salvation. Our walk with God is a faith walk to this very day. Every one of us know that, having just came through a little bout of a stomach bug of some kind. I mean, when you're sick, you're going, please, Jesus, make me feel better. I mean, you just can hardly get the words out. You're so sick. But God is saying, I have a healing for you that's beyond what you can begin to comprehend. And this life is short term, but there is going to be principles in this life that I'm going to lay out for you. There are going to be standards, and that has to do with this part right here, the sanctification walk of the believer. And what God is going to do in the law is teach them both principles. He's going to teach them salvation by grace, and he's going to teach them learning to discern the clean from the unclean. Genesis, what follows Exodus? The book of Exodus? Leviticus. God is holy, and he teaches them all the principles of discerning clean from unclean in that book. Very cool. Then so that verse right there, 22 to 26, or 22 to 25, is the Lord made bitter waters drinkable, and there the Lord tested them. Did you catch that word tested in verse 25? He tested them there. And it was a conditional call to Israel, obey and be blessed. That was basically what it was there, obey and be blessed. But I titled it, The Lord with a Tree Made Bitter Waters Sweet, because to me that tree is the cross. Okay, and then 27, 26 and 27 it could be. What do we see there? The Lord did what?
Gave a refreshment with the Elam.
Yeah.
Springs of water.
Yep. So then they came to Elam, and there were 12 springs of water and 70 date palms, and they camped there beside the waters. And one of the guys gives a speculation that they're there for several months, and I don't know. But what about the numbers, the meanings of these numbers?
12 tribes.
Yep, 12. Yeah. So what does it represent? 12.
Israel.
It can represent absolutely Israel itself, but is it just Israel? What about the 12 apostles? What about the 12?
The government one, 12 being the government, the leadership.
There you go. Order and divine governance. That's the primary picture in it. And within that, it is God's people, his covenant community. It's Israel itself, but it's also us. It's the church. It's the 12 apostles. In the heavenly realm, we see the 12 foundation stones on the base of the new temple in the heaven. Okay, 70. This is one we don't talk about very often, but if you just cut the 0 off, what have you got? 7. So what might it be? Something to do with what? Completeness, right. It denotes completeness, again, which is interesting. It's just magnified over, which kind of means like it's 70 bigger or something in my thinking. It has to do with divine dealing with the nations. So here's some verses. I'm going to give them to you. Well, you can go back and look at Genesis 10, although I did not see the word 70 anywhere in there. And I suppose if you count up all the nations that are listed, maybe it's 70. I don't know. It was given to me in my, I guess, concordance or whatever it was I was reading in. But here's 2 I did go look up. Exodus 24:1, and then Jeremiah 25:11. And in there, the number 70 is used, and it shows you God dealing with Judah and her allies or other nations. But that word, number 70, is used. I remember the one, 70 years they would be in Babylonian captivity, completeness. Because they had failed to obey God, he sent them out. He gave them a complete judgment for their violation. So those are just pictorial things that you can pick up on.
Can I ask, how do we title the chapter 15? Does it have to do something with Lord is how exalted? Because that kind of phrase is used more than once.
In celebration.
Singing and celebration. I put a song of praise to the Lord for Israel's redemption. I mean, that's pretty long, but I felt like that concluded what was done before. Before it was about their redemption in 14. The Lord redeemed and saved Israel. I think that's what I titled it. The Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians in 14. And then here we have a song of praise to the Lord for God's redemption or salvation, whichever you prefer to use. Okay, and if you had time, I went back and I did more word studies on all those terms here. Propitiation, justification, sanctification, salvation, grace, redemption, and baptism. I went back and just gave myself a mechanical definition of those from the New Testament so that I could just review it in my head a little bit and then see what I was looking at here in the song, how it was being portrayed, that this is the Lord. I am now making myself known to you as the Lord. Did you ever think of him in this way? The signs, the wonders, the miracles, the plagues, the parting of the sea, the drowning of the enemy in the sea. I mean, it's just, wow, that's an amazing picture. If you get all that in your head, it's a little bit crazy. It's a lot. Thank you guys for coming. And next week is Easter, so we will see you in 2 weeks for chapter 16.